Welcome to Cosmos and Ethos with your host, Paula Chiarmonte. Cosmos and Ethos recognizes the direct connectivity between our inner and outer lives, promises to accelerate individual consciousness and renew our collective awareness, promoting best practices in holistic health and next-generation trends. So please welcome the host of Cosmos and Ethos, Paula Chiarmonte.
Welcome to the Cosmos and Ethos show on Bold Brave TV. I'm your host, Paula Chiarmonte. Today I'm introducing a very special guest, Steve Farrell, who is an evolutionary pioneer and international director of Humanity's Team. The title of his talk today is From Microcosm to Macrocosm, Understanding Our Place in the Cosmic Consciousness, which reflects and ties into the Cosmos and Ethos series theme so well. So Steve, a warm welcome to Cosmos and Ethos. We're so looking forward to this exchange.
Yeah, me too, Paula. And thanks so much for inviting me. Really looking forward to our time together here.
My pleasure. It's my pleasure. So I think what I'll do is just give a quick overview of your background. People want to know, and then we'll just launch in. So here we go. So Steve Farrell attained the pinnacle of entrepreneurial success in Silicon Valley, founding 2 high-tech firms. He pivoted then to lead Humanity's Team in 2003, which is a global nonprofit helping humanity's awakening to our collective interconnectedness through such platforms as the Humanity Stream Plus streaming service. After contributing to the Gold Nautilus Award-winning book titled Our Moment of Choice, Evolutionary Visions and Hope for the Future, Steve then subsequently authored the book titled A New Universal Dream, which details his journey from a young entrepreneur to a life of humanitarian service. Contact info for Steve is the following. He has 2 websites. One is stevefarrell.org. The second is humanitiesteam.org. His email address is steve.farrell@humanitiesteam.org. So I'd also like to provide just a quick introduction, Steve, to your talk so that we know where you're going and how to sort of track. This is a really in-depth presentation, and so let's just take a look at the framework. So in his recent article titled From Microcosm to Macrocosm, Understanding Our Place in the Cosmic Consciousness, Steve emphasizes profound interconnections between we humans and the universe. Advocating for a cosmic perspective, he highlights that while humans might appear insignificant in the vastness of space, our existence and consciousness are intimately linked to the cosmos. He observes this interconnectedness as a shared experience and urges a shift from individualism to a collective consciousness that respects and nurtures our planet and the cosmic order. So we can jump right in with a query, Steve, which is the following. How does your talk theme address the series theme, the Cosmos and Ethos series theme, mission, which is redirecting humanity's moral compass by reclaiming the sacred nature of the cosmos and imparting its divine principles into our collective ethos?
Yes, well, Paula, thank you for that generous introduction. And my theme, what I'm talking about here, it's a complete intersection. we're actually just talking about the very same thing. This article, From Microcosm to Macrocosm, what it brings in is, many of us are familiar with Carl Sagan's quote, right, that we're all made of stardust, that literally the entire universe is made of the same thing, right? Now, mystics have shared this down through the ages, as we know. In fact, we can go back to, let's see, Hippocrates there or this is a quote actually from Plato in 400 BCE, and he says human nature was originally one, and we are a whole, and the pursuit of the whole is called love. I mean, isn't that beautiful and stunning? That is just so beautiful. Now, and this Hippocrates lived back in the same time frame. Equally beautiful quotes. There are gorgeous quotes like this back through time, notables from BCE, and then in the last couple hundred years, scientists now coming in. Humanities team, you mentioned in the introduction. So this is where I've been now for 20 years, going on 21 actually. Neil Donald Walsh, who authored the Conversations with God series, and myself, we founded Humanities Team, this 501c3 nonprofit, in June of 2003. So yeah, going on 21 years. And its whole focus is this. It's this very narrow and deep focus that the way we framed it at the launch was that we are all one. Just awakening the world of oneness. So when you talk then about the cosmos and the universe and our place in it, it's a beautiful context that says that we are that actually this is the way the scientists present it today, like Nassim Harriman and Greg Braden, Lynn McTaggart, Bruce Lipton, others. They say that each of us, is actually inseparable from the universe. That we are that we truly are all one. That we're sovereign. They sometimes use the term, we're sovereign to one body. And Nassim will sound like a preacher. He's a physicist. And Nassim says, so that the universe could not exist without you. And so, you ought to be walking like in the straightest posture, just with the most empowered person, because the universe literally cannot be without you. This is what the science is sharing, the science of everything. That, of course, this was Einstein's life work too, and he never quite was able to get that theory of everything together. He was far enough down the path with this science to where in 1921, so this is 102 years ago, he said the greatest illusion in the world, you can Google this, the greatest illusion in the world is the illusion of separation. Isn't that amazing? 102 years ago, he said this. And then he had the quote that many of us are so familiar with. He said, he says, we suffer from this optical delusion that is a prison for us, that causes us to place our affinity and our caring and our arms just around those closest to us, our nuclear family. And he said, our job must be to free ourselves from this prison, this optical delusion that's saying we're separate, and embrace the whole of humanity and nature. It couldn't have been any more clear. And then the third quote that, again, many of us are familiar with, where he said, there's no problem that can be solved at the same level of consciousness that created it. Okay, so just sometimes you can kind of sit with that one to say, well, now what does that mean, and what does that suggest? And I've sat with it for a long time, so I'll share. And I invite you to sit with it. Every person, all viewers, to sit with it. But I think what it means is, so like in today's world, Paula and I, before coming on the program, were sharing what many of us know to be true, that it's quite challenging, right? In today's world, we all have family members and friends that are very challenged now, feeling alone, often with a good deal of anxiety, disempowered in many cases. Sometimes there's depression, all of these kinds of things. And then you say, why? Well, then if we go out and look out the window at the collective, we see, of course, 2 wars going on that are quite challenging. This whole global warming, extreme weather thing that seemed to have hit a hyperbolic curve here, last year. And more, the polarity that is all over the world. It's not just in the US, it's all over the world. And this is very disheartening. I have a 19-year-old daughter who's away at college. She came back for the holidays, and she said, "Dad, I'm concerned about my future. I mean, is the planet going to be habitable as I, grow up and have a family and so on?" And I said, "I'm concerned about it too, Sophie. But the wonderful thing about my work is it's all about making sure that your generation and future generations are going to inhabit a sustainable and flourishing world." And so I am very hopeful and believe that yes, you will inherit a fantastic planet. And it's because of programs like this, where we get to talk about, microcosm and macrocosm, the cosmos and ethos, where we can bring forward current science. And the current science is saying, I was bringing in Nassim and Greg and all of these in their research. The current science is saying, what mystics have shared. I mean, they are leaving nothing to chance. They are sharing that everything, physical and non-physical, from quantum scale, which is protons and atoms and things, to galaxies, that everything is actually deeply interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent. In fact, one. So many of us have heard this term that there's a universal consciousness that's animating all of life, right? Many of us have heard terms like this. And it does ring true, doesn't it? That there's a universal that's animating me, that's animating, there's this oneness now, and the scientists will call it cosmos and universe, and then the spiritualists will call it the divine and God. And then, of course, there's all this material that says these words are interchangeable. It's okay, cosmos and universe and the divine and God. That's what omnipresence means when they say, well, God's omnipresent. It's the divine spans the entire cosmos and universe. Is what omniscience means. So as we then awaken and are on this conscious journey and growing ourselves in this wisdom, we can tap into that omniscience and likewise the omnipotence, right? And there's many people talk about the miracles that are part of this journey. My God, this synchronicity. Now this happened and this happened. And so, this is the beautiful thing, is as we open to this new awareness of, my God, I've had my ladder leaning against the wrong wall. I grew up with this Newtonian, Darwinian understanding that I was my body, separate from you, separate from the divine up in the clouds somewhere, separate from the earth. I'm a body, born into the world by Joe and Linda, and I'll go 5 feet under here in some number of years. That was my understanding. Almost everybody was born into the world that way. But then we have, and we kind of paid a little attention to the mystics, and then the scientists came along, Einstein and these others, and it's become so compelling now. It's just so compelling that if we want, we have free will. So we can say, no, I'm more comfortable with the Newtonian, Darwinian thing, and I'm my parents' son, and I'm not, part of the universe. We can choose whatever we want, but I'm not sure why we'd want to choose that when science and mystics and all of this current material is saying, we are an emanation of the Most High. We are that stardust. We are daughters and sons of the Most High. With all those same properties, right? This is what the physicists and biologists and geologists, Greg Braden's a geologist, what they're sharing. They're saying they have the same properties. We have everlasting life. We have unlimited potential, all of these things. And yes, our parents did bring us into this world. They're like the airport terminal. But airport terminal, that's different than source. Where do we really come from? Our true source, it's not, it's what, haven't you noticed how kids can become entirely different from their parents? How did this kid come into the world? Doesn't look anything like their parents, right? Because they came from source. We all did, right? This is what the research is sharing. So, so this whole microcosm, macrocosm thing. It's this article. It's just kind of bringing us into this awareness that not this insignificant body, with this single lifetime, born into the world and created by our physical parents. That we're all something much, much more miraculous, profound, really, I mean, unbelievable. It's jaw-dropping, really, as we embrace what this new wisdom shares and what this research shares, that we are indeed, offspring of the Most High. So, so that's the work of Humanities Team. I mentioned, when we launched Humanities Team, Neil and I, there 20 years ago, we said we're awakening the world of oneness. This is the oneness of which I speak today. We're downloaded actually on Humanities Team. We don't do, as you might imagine, we don't go to like a whiteboard and do a strategy. Okay, let's do a strategy session. It's downloaded. We just like, okay, got it. We see ourselves as arms and legs and lungs, of the one. So, and we're saying there's a lot of pain down here. So, bring us the inspirations as to things that we can and should do. So, the way we frame it now, which was how we were inspired to, is to make conscious living pervasive worldwide by 2040. That's in 16 years. That was a download. We got that. And conscious living is just, as you might imagine, as I'm describing what research says and it's affirming what mystics have shared and all of this, conscious living is just the simplicity of we're embracing these new understandings. We take the time to really look at that research to see that this is what ultimate reality is. So in a sense, now get this will really ring your bell. Yes, because I had to sit with this for a long time myself. Is, my God, the way I lived my life from a kid where I thought it was just my parents and one life to live, I've had my ladder against the wrong wall. I mean, my entire life was built around a false understanding, a separated self. That was my entire life. I'd wake up from the pillow and it was just me, this little fella that was growing and that would one day go 5 feet under. And then I spent you mentioned, I participated in one book, wrote another book. My own book is called The New Universal Dream. And in The New Universal Dream, I share about it's a true story of my journey from when I was 12 years old, living with my mom, who was a divorced mother, working full time with my 6 siblings. So in a little 1,200 square foot home, probably how most of us grew up, often with a divorced parent and busy parent. So I grew up this way. And with these understandings that I've been sharing, and I had to grow into, this new awareness where it was like I'm living in a false reality of this separated self. I don't want to do that anymore. And there were moments. There was, in fact, a moment where I really sat and made that decision that I'm not just Joe and Linda's son. Yes, they delivered me to this world, and yes, I love them dearly, my physical parents, but that's not primarily who I am. And I put this whole new foundation under my feet, this new foundation of the universe, of my role in the universe. And it's not just me, it's all of us. And part of what the wisdom shares, and which I've also been given as a download many, many times, is which would sound true too, is we're all equal members of that one. So of the divine, of God, of universe, of cosmos. There's no favorites that are ever played. None. Why would there be? Right? We're all coming from source. So and we're given free will. So we get to decide on things. My journey has been a journey of just a young man, awakening to who I am, who I really am, and then living into it. And then as Humanities Team has grown, the particular inspiration we were given was create conscious education. And then later we got the download of put it on a streaming platform, and then translate it into 75 languages. So you can broadcast these, master classes all over the world, 75 languages. Most, even the biggest organizations in our space are like 4 or 5 languages. We're 75 languages. And our streaming platform is unsurpassed. There's nobody, we're small compared to some of the big for-profits, and we're a nonprofit. And yet we go to Roku and Google and Apple, and we're on any device, and we've got more connectivity for the masterclasses than anybody in the whole industry. And these were all downloads that we got of just, and then collect up all the scientists, the philosophers like Ken Wilber, the spiritual leaders, the embodied practices, Qigong, yoga, all these things, and create these just fabulous masterclasses that bring people into what I'm describing here, and they're each, of course, going to bring you in a different way. And that's the whole point, is there's a common mountaintop, this diversity and unity, this oneness. I'll even call it divinity, but there are many paths to get there. And that was what we were called to do. It's just create, we have over 175 of these master classes now. So some people say it's Qigong. Others say it's Michael Bernard Beckwith. Then Greg Braden, Nassim Harriman, Bruce Lipton, Lynn McTaggart, good. They're all on the platform. And they actually all have free programs. We're a nonprofit. So in fact, our whole thing is, let's get the price down. Our whole team says, when can we drop the price again? It's the opposite of a for-profit, because it will be in more homes, right? And so that's our dream. That's our North Star, is coming back to my daughter, Sophie, Dad, I'm kind of worried about today's world. 20 years from now, 30 years from now, well, is it going to be okay? And I say, yes, I'm worried about it too, but yes, it's going to be okay. Why? Because people are awakening to what we're talking about here now. And there's so much to it, and I'll stop here in just a second, but when we talk about conscious living, there's so many dimensions to it, in the science, the spirituality, the embodied practices, the philosophy, etc., conscious business. There's so much that that's why we created this whole conscious streaming platform and community for conscious people, is to allow people to live into the fullness of all of what it is, so we can deepen into it during our own conscious journey. And I'll stop there.
Steve, thank you so much for such a compacted, comprehensive, streamlined, and beautiful overview and framework. I just want to recognize and validate a couple of things. First of all, thank you for drawing those very, cogent parallels between your initiatives, your publications, your organization, et cetera, in this very humble series, which is really in infancy. I think it's, in a way, it's remarkable. In a way, it's not, because there's so much synergy now occurring. But I so appreciate your drawing those parallels. And also, I want to thank you for defining and explicating this term that you use. You maybe even coined it, conscious living, and also offering really practical examples, drawing from your own life experience. It's like we've all got a story, right? We all have a unique story, and we all arrived at this place on a different path, but we all have this common denominator called humanity, and it's what creates this beautiful, exquisite kaleidoscope that we share, especially in these times. And further, you really gave a wonderful interview, and I'm kind of giving this like overview for our viewers because there's so much depth and breadth in your initiatives. Of Humanities Team is an global organization, and your leadership position as the international director, as well as your 2 publications, in addition to Humanities Stream. And I'm going to be very explicit about those words because that's different from Humanities Team. They both have 2 words. Humanities Team is the organization, the global organization with the mission and vision, and Humanities Stream is the educational platform. You also have an initiative, and we'll get to this momentarily, titled Changing Humanity's Future. But I just wanted to revisit some of those really key bulleted points, that you had shared with us, and also mentioning, you use the phrase true North Star, and that is really sort of the hidden agenda of this series. How do we reestablish humanity's true North Star? Well, we have to be inventive, and we have to use our inherent implicit creativity as human beings. And moreover, and more importantly, we need to look up, right? We need to look up, and we need to look within to create this integration as above, so below, because we know the implicit divinity of cosmos. We know it, of course, we know it historically, but we also feel it. It's experiential, because in these challenging times with such turbulence and transformational capacity, we're all together thrown into this common dilemma and learning how to resolve it. The least of which, as you alluded to with your daughter Sophie's query, as Bruce Lipton has termed it, humanity's sixth extinction. And we know the humanity's sixth extinction is a mere 20 years away. So I was really relieved to learn about your timeline. That 2040 seems to fit that timeline, right? Because there definitely, it's inarguable, there is now urgency. We can no longer afford to procrastinate or be delusional or wait or think somebody else will do it. We can't. We have to do it. If we don't do it, who's going to do it? Even in our own little ways, in our own little lives, in terms of just living our lives more consciously, even if that is a plausible first step in contributing, to this growing trend on the planet of raising our consciousness. So I referenced all those points you made and tried to kind of compare them a little bit, really for our viewers. And it was very clear. It was crystal clear as you presented it. Thank you. But these are really key concepts, key conceptual theories, but also they're practical activities that are implicit in your organization's humanities team vision and mission, as well as humanities stream plus. And I might add as a quick footnote, in the past week, of course, I always research speakers, but it took me days. It took me so long because there's so much content on humanities stream. Plus, and I'm trained as a research librarian, so it was almost like drinking from a fire hose. It was truly overwhelming, but it was also like being at this massive, a conceptual smorgasbord of ideas that were just so illuminating and encouraging, and it's like just a fountain of hope. Humanities stream plus, and I want to mention again, one of Steve's website is actually Humanities Team. His other one is stevefarrell.org, but also Humanities Stream is another. Obviously, I don't think it's a separate website, but it's a very important component of Humanities Team.
Humanitiesstream.net. Yeah, takes you straight.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that. Humanitiesstream.net. Thank you so much for that detail.
For the Y. Yeah.
Thank you. It's an important one. Okay, so, and I also want to just touch on two really quick things because I do follow you, which was your recent interview with Rihanna Eisler, I believe that's her name, The Chalice and the Blade, was riveting because both of you presented, it seemed to be sort of the yin and yang of this evolutionary ethos that we're moving through right now. And also, you endorsed Robert Atkinson's 2022 book titled A New Story of Wholeness, that decodes a universal, timeless, and innate pattern for humanity's transformation. And I learned so much more about your, not just your background, but your trajectory, your vision, what you envision as you move forward with your organization and your educational platform. So I wanted to mention those two sources because I thought they were very important resources for our viewers to perhaps research further. So I just would like to ask you one final question. You did detail the streaming services of Humanities Team and the streaming resources of Humanities Stream and the mission statement and vision of Humanities Team. But can you tell us a little bit about changing humanity's future? And because you have an interesting phrase called the Galileo moment. You reference our current, this is important, you reference our current Galileo moment. Please explain this and how it relates to changing humanity's future initiative to make conscious living pervasive across the globe in 2040. And that was launched by Humanities Team, founded by you and Neil Donald Walsh, launched in 2022. So we would love to hear more about that, since it seems to be underpinning this future trajectory as I understand it.
Yes, great. Yes, I'd love to. So let me start with changing humanity's future. It was about 2 years ago that initiative was born. When we announced it, it was Humanities Team, Neil Donald Walsh, and his foundation called the Conversations with God Foundation. Its census blossomed, and almost all of our faculty is involved with that initiative. Michael Bernard Beckwith has been very active, but Suzanne Giesman, Deborah Ponham, and many, I shouldn't name names, Jude Curvan, because there's so many that have come in and are really working shoulder to shoulder with us here. What this initiative is about is, as I mentioned, the launch was just to create awareness that the mystical understandings, and then more recently as science was affirming these things, to bring that in. But what we felt into here 2 years ago was that these are now becoming challenging times. It was maybe considered sort of optional, a luxury or something, here up until about 2 years ago, as we talk about what ultimate reality is, this deeply interconnected, interrelated, interdependent, in fact, one world that's non-dual, that's in harmony, all of these things. And 2 years ago, what the download we got was that it's really not so much optional or luxury anymore. This is really, we need to change our future path here, that there's an unfolding to our global civilization where we're living as the separated self that's not really taking us in a helpful, positive direction at all. And we can see that we're not stewarding the earth. We're treating it more like a refrigerator. There's when we talk about land, energy, water, there's simply we're not using these resources well. So we're increasingly now in trouble. You watch, and you mentioned the six possible mass extinction. You watch Netflix is big, and it's in their top 5 of all programming that they have, and it's called Our Planet. It's a beautiful series that goes back to billions of years ago, actually, and then it unfolds, the evolution of the planet to today. Just an amazing series. Now, the last episode in that series brings in, we are headed straight for a 6th great mass extinction, and the seriousness of that. And it says, but there's good news that we're, mammals that have a cognitive capacity to U-turn, to detour, to go in a new direction, and hopefully that can happen here, but we all hear the term existential crisis thrown around with some frequency, right? So what changing humanity's future is about, and you can go to changinghumanitiesfuture.com, changinghumanitiesfuture.com to see the whole initiative. It's got action steps, resources, all free. There's even in there a hyperlink you can hit. The hyperlink says confirmations of our conscious reality. I read the one quote from Plato, but you'll see, wow, all these quotes from leaders back through time and scientists and David Bohm and Erwin Schrödinger, not just Einstein, where they're affirming this is real. So check that out too. Hit that hyperlink. Look at all the quotes that from leaders down through time. So Changing Humanity's Future is saying, hey, that's now, it's important now. It's urgent. This isn't really an option any longer. Let's really take the time, to do our own homework and create our own awareness around ultimate reality, and not live in this false reality of separated self. It's just a fiction, this separated self. I'll unfold that a little more as I talk here, but it's a fiction. We really, there is no such thing as a separated self. And again, the scientists, Resonance Science Foundation, Greg, Nassim Harriman, and others, the Nobel Prize for Physics. Okay, this is like the biggest prize in physics, October of last year, 2023, for entanglement. 3 researchers, where entanglement says that you can go to all parts of the universe and be hundreds of millions of light years apart, and there's no physical connection between things, and they're deeply affecting each other. And they're going, wow, what is that? Right? So what that is this is when I talk about everything, atoms and protons to galaxies, physical and non-physical, that's what it is. And it means that, and by the way, you don't have to go just look at that. Look at the Popular Mechanics article that people send me articles now. Just in the last week, Popular Mechanics came out with one that says, oh my God, there's one global consciousness that we're actually all affecting, like a global consciousness. There's a ripple to a pond that is out, that's universal. Mainstream science is now increasingly coming into these understandings and writing articles and things that are sharing. There's no such thing as a separated self at all. So, and here's the beautiful thing is when we live into this new understanding. I was using the metaphor earlier of I kind of had my ladder against this wall, right? Of I'm just Linda and Joe's. So when I picked up my ladder and moved it, and then put it against this wall that says I'm not separated at all, I'm doing what Einstein said. So he says our job must be, we have to release ourselves from this prison. He said, right? So we have to embrace the whole of humanity and nature, and because that's our our real self, right? So that's what I did. I just said, okay, it's true. So here's my ladder, and I'll push it over and lean it against this wall and live this way, where the homeless person, they're all a part. It's not just metaphor. It's a part of me. It's really a part of me. And now the beautiful thing is we haven't. This is a short program. We haven't explored like part of my chapter where I lived in Silicon Valley. I started 2 companies that went to 75 million quite rapidly. That gave me entrance into the whole Silicon Valley wealth world, private jets, all of that kind of stuff. And I didn't grow up that way. I already shared that. I was a middle kid, in a little home, divorced mom. So it was kind of a wow experience, really. But I had a lot of cognitive dissonance of what am I doing? Is this where I'm supposed to be? With my life, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? And I came to the conclusion I'm living a kid's game here. Just starting companies and growing them. It's just a children's game. In today's world with everything going on. So I left. Moved my family, as Paula, as you shared in the introduction, moved my family here to Boulder, and for 20 years now I've been with these beautiful partners and colleagues and humanities team, and then living consciously. We're putting different words around what that means. Now, what's interesting is when I was in that private jet world, it was a mirage, honestly, because I use the term mirage because as soon as you get just $1 jillion, you're like, well, let me get $2 jillion. and then you get 2 jillion. Well, let me get 4, and you're prioritizing that over all of your important relationships. Uh, that's not what people think it is, that old American dream thing. And so I realized this isn't it. Now, but I did find it. I found this delicious living. I finally found it's this conscious living thing. Oh my God. You start living this way and, eating more mindfully and sleeping more mindfully, and you have your daily practice and where you're seeing other people as a part of yourself and honoring the planet and things. And wow. So for me, it's like living on a raft that's floating above this sort of roller coaster. This is a bad day. This is a good day. How I grew up, I had a lot of days like up and down and up and down. Now it's like a raft and you're floating above that. And it doesn't mean that your challenges go away, because you still have challenges. In fact, my wife and I adopted our kids, open adoptions, both of them. And one of them, our son, has some real severe challenges. I'm only mentioning that because I don't want to leave you, the viewer, with some impression of, oh, well, sure, he lived that kind of life, and so good for you. But no, believe me, I have challenges that are equal to, and maybe more than what most people have. But I still live on a raft in terms of getting up every day and feeling like, oh my God, hooray, another beautiful day, and there's so much I can do with this beautiful day, So that's what that's what Changing Humanity's Future is about. It's the remedy to this whole isolation and this collective challenge that's out in the world. Because when we live this way, this whole set of challenges individually and collectively are remedied. There's so much more I could say about that, but just with a little bit of time, let me just bring in this. The other way, when we're living without this awareness, where ladder is against the wall of separated self, it's very transactional. Just notice, okay, even in your next 24 hours, notice how much transactional are you running into with your spouse, with your kids, with coworkers, where it's just, I'm going to do this and you'll do that. And it's just kind of, which I'm going to use the word painful, and some people will say to me, well, you're just sensitive to. I don't think it's just me being sensitive when I say that. I think that we've grown numb to what transactional living is. We've all had so much of it where maybe our parents or teachers or coworkers or, where they're just, I need you to do this and then you can get that. We've grown numb to transactional living. In conscious living, it's not transactional. It's not even relational, which is better. It's over, I'm going to call it, in divine presence of, you see, that we're on a sacred journey here. That we come from the Most High, that people are doing their best. It's a whole, that's what creates the raft, is where you're living that way, where you have that worldview and you're living that way. So this is what the Changing Humanity's Future initiative is. And then the Galileo moment, just this was something that
Steve, may I interrupt you for just a moment?
Sure, yes.
Because that Galileo moment is really important. But let's take a quick break, okay? Because we'll be gone for a few minutes and then we'll have a good 10 minutes and you can, please do dive into it. But let's take a break now. So this, of course, has been the Cosmos and Ethos show on Bold Brave TV. I'm your host, Paula Chiarmonte. My special guest today is Steve Farrell with Humanity's Team. We'll be back in just a few minutes, so don't touch that dial.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back to the Cosmos and Ethos show on Bold Brave TV. I'm your host, Paula Chiarmonte. My special guest today is Steve Farrell, evolutionary pioneer, international director of Humanities Team. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Steve.
Okay, great. Thank you, Paula. Well, so I was just getting to this Galileo moment. So let me share what this is. First, just so you know, this maybe 4 or 5 months ago, I was walking around my kitchen in my home. And I've used the term download some number of times during this program. Now I'm just in my kitchen walking around, and this term dropped into my head in a substantial way, Galileo moment. And I thought, what the heck is Galileo moment? I had no idea. What is this term? So I went, and that led to, wow, a lot. So I started out by just going and Googling it. What is Galileo? And who was Galileo again? I remember from, a little bit from science class. So here's what I got. And this has now become our overarching thing here with this Changing Humanity's Future Initiative, and Humanities Team was a hugely important term. Let me tell you why. So Galileo, just as a reminder, because you might be like me, a little fuzzy on this man. He lived in Italy. He was the most prominent scientist, physicist, astronomer back in the early 1600s. So the Dutch invented the telescope there around that time. And he, like many, created his own telescope and was looking up into the heavens. And at that time, we also probably remember from early school that they thought the Earth was the center of the universe, right? So that everything was revolving around the Earth, the entire universe. And so Galileo, with his telescope, and made his observations, and he published his observations. And he said, the Earth is not the center of the universe. We are a planet revolving around a sun in a solar system with other planets, and we're not the center of the universe at all. Now, that doesn't sound like that would be some terrible thing that would create some huge problem. But, oh my goodness, that was a terrible thing that created a massive problem for him. And this isn't funny, actually. He was put under house arrest by the Roman Inquisition. And they were getting ready, remember the Spanish and Roman Inquisition, people were being put to death for heresy and stuff, where you were publishing things like this that went against the conventions of the time. And they said, you must recant right away. And he did, just to save his life. He remained under house arrest to the end of his life. So he paid a big price here for his research. But even though he recanted, others with telescopes made the same observations, and the world did change. There was the awareness then going forward that we were not the center of the universe, that we're in a solar system. In fact, we're way off on the side of the universe. So now, it didn't take me long to figure out why that term was dropped into my head, because essentially what happened here is Galileo exposed a false reality. We were all living with the reality. Ultimate reality is we're the center of the universe, right? And then it's like, well, we've been living in a false reality. You haven't ever been the center of the universe. So one man paid the price for enlightening or creating this new awareness, this correct understanding, right, for the whole world. Now, here we are in today's world, where, as Paula and we're having this discussion and sharing, well, there's no separated self at all. I mean, the whole notion of, even Einstein 102 years ago, my God, we have this optical delusion where we think everything is separate, and it's creating this prison for us. It's a mess. We have to free ourselves from this prison. Well, we haven't yet. And that was 102 years ago. And now you've got all these physicists and Nobel Prize and articles, everything that is just couldn't be more on point here, insofar as there's no such thing as a separated self. We're actually deeply interconnected with the entire universe and with each other and the earth itself, which has a soul. And yet, there's, as has been the case in the past, there's this lag time where current research is not informing how most of us are living on this planet. We're still, from the time we wake up on the pillow of I'm separate, the little me, which is going to go out and do things for the little me, with this view that I'm just going to die anyway, because I'm my body. None of that is true. The research is overwhelming. We are not a separated self. That is a totally false reality. And the thing is we don't have, wouldn't it be wonderful if a Galileo could come along and say, no problem, let me put it on my back. I'll take this one, for all of you. There's no Galileo. There's no one person that can do it for us. We have to do it ourselves. Mm-hmm. And Paula, you're bringing in, is when we talk about sixth grade mass extinction and existential crisis, that's all directly related to this false reality that we're living in. See, because if indeed we do the homework, if we come into the awareness ourselves that separated self is a fiction, and we live into this bigger self, I'll call it, where we see ourselves as a cell in the body of humanity, the 8 billion people on the planet, we put our ladder against that wall, start living that way, then this is where we find it. You won't find it in the financial riches. Take it from me. You won't, but you will find it here. When you talk about a delicious life, you will find it. And there's no transactional. It's better than relational. It's beautiful what you bring to your family and coworkers. And when you create conscious businesses in the world. So you would, even if the world wasn't in trouble, you do it for yourself because it feels so good. It's this delicious way to live your life. And here's the thing is, where we do it together, and we only have to get to the 8 or 10%, the Malcolm Gladwell thing, right? Tipping point. We only have to get there. And then the whole world tips. Boom. We come into this whole we create that sustainable and flourishing planet. And then with our Sophies, our kids, we can say, hey, it's okay. We're getting this right. We're making the adjustments now. Your generation and future generations will inhabit a sustainable and flourishing planet. So that's the Galileo moment, and it's on each of them.
Thank you. Thank you for expounding and explaining it. And we're just, have a few more minutes, but it seems that there's a mandate now for us to all find our own personal Galileo moments. And it seems to also to be within our grasp, as abstract, as it may appear on the surface. So I just want to thank you for, sharing that aha moment you had. And historically, we live in the most uncommon times. And so not only is there so much to learn from history, but we also want to understand that we're making history. in a way that we probably can't even fathom on any level because the times are so unusual. But I'm afraid we are running out of time now. And I just want to thank you so much for this beautiful, wonderfully encouraging overview of your organization and your learning platform, Changing Humanity's Future Initiative. So many uplifting and inspiring opportunities, for all of us also to participate in. On a final note, these are organizations, especially Humanities Stream Plus, the educational platform. Anyone can participate in this learning adventure and get involved, regardless of the country, because it's a global movement. So, excuse me. Steve, it's just been really encouraging and really wonderful to host you and to kind of share, our mutual visions and how they sort of refract off of each other. Again, I'm sure that as we move forward, all of us will come to better understand this opportunity for our personal Galileo moments, so that all of us, all of humanity, all 8 billion, will participate and feel like no one will ever be left behind. No one will ever be left behind. We're all in this together. We all support each other, and we all share the same horizon of hopefulness, regardless of the external illusion. So, do you have any final quick last words you'd like to share before we close?
Yeah, if you want, do you want me to share where people can go, websites and things?
Sure, please, that'd be great.
Okay, great. So humanitiesteam.org is our nonprofit with a Y, humanitiesteam.org, one word. And then humanitiestream.net is the conscious streaming platform with the translation, and that the changinghumanity'sfuture.com is the initiative. A newuniversaldream.com is the book, where the free sections, chapters of the book, and we even give you one of my master classes where you just enter your receipt number. It's a fairly inexpensive paperback book, or you can even get the e-version. And then the stevefarrell.com site. So these are some of the sites that you can go to just if you want to learn more following this process.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, it's a wonderful note to end on, that there's just this incredible opportunity to participate. So we invite our viewers, take a look at those websites. And so I want to thank you so sincerely again for such a wonderful exchange. It's really been fun, very enlightening, and hope to have you back on the series. We just commend your initiatives and your efforts. And so this has been Cosmos and Ethos on Bold Brave TV. I'm your host, Paula Chiarmonte. I've had a very special guest on today, Steve Farrell, an evolutionary pioneer and international director of Humanities Team. Steve, thank you so much again.
Thanks for having me, Paula. I appreciate it.
This has been Cosmos and Ethos with your host, Paula Chiarmonte. Tune in each week as Cosmos and Ethos demonstrates the profound interdependency between individual healing and collective health, right here Fridays at 3 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.